Mary, Queen of Scots, was the Queen of Scotland from 1542 to 1567. She was the only surviving and legitimate child of King James V of Scotland and was just 6 days old when she became queen after her father's death. Please continue to support my channel by subscribing. As a result of her youth and the political turmoil in Scotland at the time, Mary was sent to France at the age of 5 to be raised at the French court. She later married the Dauphin of France and became Queen Consort of France, but was widowed at the age of 18. In 1561, Mary returned to Scotland to claim her throne and ruled Scotland for the next several years. During her reign, she faced opposition from various quarters and struggled to assert her authority over the country. Her marriage to her second husband, Lord Darnley, was also marked by conflict and political intrigue, and she was eventually implicated in his murder. In 1567, Mary was forced to abdicate the Scottish throne and fled to England, where she was imprisoned by her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. Mary spent the next 19 years in captivity in England, during which time she was implicated in several plots to overthrow Elizabeth and take the English throne. In 1586, Mary was tried and found guilty of treason against Elizabeth and was sentenced to death. She was executed on the 8th of February 1587, and her death marked the end of the Stuart dynasty in Scotland. Despite her troubled reign and the controversies that surrounded her, Mary, Queen of Scots, remained a fascinating and important figure in Scottish and English history. After the failure of the Babington plot, Mary, Queen of Scots, was put on trial for treason in England. She was found guilty and sentenced to death, and on the 8th of February 1587, Mary was executed by beheading at Fotheringhay Castle. The execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, was a significant event in English history and had a far-reaching consequence. Mary had been seen by many Catholics as the rightful Queen of England, and her death was seen as a triumph for Elizabeth and the Protestant establishment. However, it also further inflamed tensions between England and Catholic nations, and Mary's death was later used as a rallying cry by Catholics who sought to overthrow Elizabeth. Overall, the events surrounding the Babington plot and the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, were a major turning point in English history and had a lasting impact on the country's political and religious landscape. Mary was executed at Fotheringhay Castle, located in Northamptonshire, England. Fotheringhay Castle was a medieval fortress that had been used as a prison for high-status prisoners, and it was chosen as the site of Mary's execution due to its remote location and strong fortifications. Mary was brought to the castle in 1586 following the discovery of the Babington plot and was put on trial for treason. She then went on to be found guilty and was sentenced to death and executed. The castle no longer exists as it was largely demolished in the 17th century. Today, the site of the castle is marked by a monument and is a popular tourist destination for those interested in English history. Mary was executed by beheading. The method of execution was a relatively quick and painless one, as the goal was to kill the person quickly with as little suffering as possible. In the case of Mary, Queen of Scots, the execution was performed by a professional executioner using a large two-handed sword. The execution of Mary was a significant event in English history and had far-reaching consequences. Mary had been seen by Catholics as a rightful queen, and her death was seen as a triumph for England. According to historical accounts, Mary wore a black mourning gown to her execution. The gown was made of black silk with a trimmed with fur, and she wore a matching black veil over her head. In keeping with the customs of the time, Mary dressed in a manner befitting her status as a former queen and member of the royal family. By wearing a black gown and veil, she was making a statement about her acceptance of her fate and her resignation to her death. Mary was not beheaded with a single blow. The first attempt missed her neck and struck the back of her head. The second blow severed her neck, except for a small bit, which the executioner cut through using the axe. Afterwards, he held her head up and declared, "God save the Queen." At that moment, her auburn hair in his hand turned out to be a wig, revealing that Mary actually had very short grey hair instead. Cecil's nephew, who was also present at the execution, reported to his uncle that her lips stared up and down a quarter of an hour after her head was cut off. Mary's execution was a significant event, and her attire on that day has become a part of the historical record. The black gown and veil that she wore have been described in various historical accounts, and are remembered as symbols of her dignity and grace in the face of death. Queen Elizabeth did not watch the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots. Although Elizabeth was the ruler of England and the person responsible for ordering Mary's execution, she did not attend the event in person. It was not uncommon for monarchs of the time to stay away from executions, as they were often seen as distasteful or unseemly events. Additionally, there may have been security concerns, as Mary had a number of supporters who might have sought to rescue her or cause unrest if they saw the Queen in attendance. Instead, Elizabeth delegated the responsibility of overseeing the execution to her representatives, who carried out the sentence on her behalf. The execution was performed in private, and the details of what took place were not widely known at the time. Although Elizabeth did not watch the execution, the event had a profound impact on her and her reign. The execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, was a major turning point in Elizabeth's rule and is remembered as one of the most significant events of her reign. Please continue to support my channel by subscribing. Please comment, like and subscribe if you wish for more stories, and leave your suggestions below and I will endeavour to cover them.